Hello guys, welcome to my channel where stories filled with revenge, moral lessons and love are told. Please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss more of these powerful stories. My name is Clarissa, and for 20 years I poured my entire soul into a company I once thought of as my second home. I started when we were just a handful of people working out of a rented office in the industrial side of the city. I was the one who kept things moving when servers crashed, when shipments were delayed, when everyone else panicked. I used to joke that my blood flowed through the pipes of that building. Every late night, every weekend spent away from family, I gave it willingly because I believed we were building something that would last. When the old founder retired, I already knew the place inside and out. I thought I had earned respect, maybe even a seat at the big table. But instead, the board brought in a flashy new CEO named Lionel. He strutted through the hallways in expensive suits, always talking about disruption, efficiency, shareholder value, words that made us sound less like people and more like assets to be managed. At first, I tried to support him. I gave him detailed reports, walked him through our processes, explained the history of why we did things the way we did. He would smile thinly, tap his watch, and dismiss me as if I were some relic of the past. The mood in the office changed quickly. The old family spirit was gone, replaced with metrics and performance charts taped to every wall. Lionel surrounded himself with young executives who worshipped him, and mocked the rest of us quietly in corners. I overheard one of them laugh and call me the dinosaur with a desk. I swallowed it, but it burned inside me. After 2 decades of sacrifice, they reduced me to a joke. Then came the Friday I will never forget. I was called into HR, where Lionel sat waiting with his smirk. A packet of papers lay in front of me. He began with his usual corporate jargon, praising my years of service before sliding the packet closer. "It's time for us to move in a new direction," he said. My heart pounded. After all I had done, this was how it ended. The HR director talked about severance pay, continuation of benefits for a few months, and then something that made me pause, a waiver form. At the very end of the packet, hidden among the legal language, it asked me to relinquish any claims or shareholder rights. Lionel tapped that line with his pen and said casually, "Just a standard procedure, Clarissa. No need to worry." I stared at it, my breath caught. Shareholder rights? It stirred something deep in my memory. Back in the early days, when the founder had begged me to stay during a financial crisis, he had offered me shares. They were small then, nearly worthless, but they symbolized faith in the future. I had tucked the documents away, hardly thinking of them over the years. Why would I need to give this up? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady.
Lionel chuckled.
Because frankly, it's meaningless. The company has gone through so many funding rounds since then, those little legacy shares don't carry weight anymore. This is just to clear up paperwork for our upcoming merger. Don't worry about it. The word merger echoed in my chest. I hadn't heard anything about that, and the way he brushed it aside only deepened my suspicion. I signed nothing. I told them I needed time to review the documents with my family. Lionel's eyes narrowed slightly. "You'll want to move quickly. Deals like this don't wait for stragglers." As I walked out of that office for the last time, a box of my things in my arms, humiliation burned through me. People who once depended on me avoided eye contact. The young executives whispered and smirked. I felt small, discarded, irrelevant. But beneath the shame was a seed of anger, and inside that anger was a spark of determination. Something about that waiver, about those old shares, didn't feel right. That night, I dug through old boxes in my attic. The smell of dust and cardboard surrounded me as I flipped through binders and yellowing folders. And then I found it. The original 2006 shareholder agreement, signed by the founder himself, stamped with the company seal. My hands trembled as I read through the clauses, each line tugging a memory back to life. And there it was, buried deep in the fine print. Any shareholder holding more than a certain threshold of legacy shares retained veto power over major corporate structural changes, including mergers or acquisitions. My heart raced. Could it be that after all these years, I still held that much? Lionel had dismissed me as irrelevant, but what if he was wrong? I clutched those papers against my chest, sitting alone in the dim light of my attic, and for the first time since being pushed out, I felt a strange mixture of hope and power stirring inside me. They thought I was finished. They thought they could laugh at my worthless shares. But maybe, just maybe, they had made a terrible mistake. I didn't sleep that night. I kept pacing my living room floor with the document in my hand, reading it over and over to make sure my tired eyes weren't deceiving me. It was all there. In black and white, the clause that gave me power to veto any major transaction if my legacy shares exceeded the threshold. I grabbed a calculator, pulled out dusty spreadsheets, and carefully traced the splits, dilutions, and changes that had happened over the years. By dawn, I realized something extraordinary. I still held enough shares to cross that threshold. Barely, but enough. I sat back on my couch, stunned. Lionel had tried to trick me into signing away the very thing that could stop his entire plan. He thought I was ignorant, that I wouldn't remember or understand what those papers meant. And maybe most people wouldn't. But I had been there from the beginning. I knew the bones of this company. I knew its hidden history. Still, I understood the danger of my discovery. If Lionel found out I was aware of my rights, he would do everything possible to crush me before I could act. I couldn't rush into this. I needed guidance and, more importantly, protection. That's when I called an old friend, Amira, a lawyer I had met years ago when the company was negotiating contracts. She had once told me, "If you ever need someone to fight for you, call me. I won't forget loyalty." When she picked up the phone, I explained everything, my voice shaking with excitement and fear. She was silent for a moment, then said, "Clarissa, this is huge. If that clause still stands, you're holding a loaded weapon in a room full of people who think you're unarmed. Don't sign anything, don't talk to anyone at that company. Let me verify the legality." Over the next week, Amira dove into the records with me. We pored over amendments, reviewed state corporate laws, and double-checked every number. She confirmed what I already suspected. My veto power was real and enforceable. "This is going to blow up their merger if they don't deal with you properly," she said. "But you need to play this carefully. Silence is your greatest weapon right now." So I stayed silent. Lionel's office sent me polite reminders to return the waiver, followed by less polite ones. Then came phone calls, first from HR, then from some junior attorney I'd never met. I ignored them all. I let the pressure build. I knew they were running against the clock, and I wanted every tick of it to gnaw at them. Sure enough, the rumors started to leak. Through former colleagues who still respected me, I learned that Lionel had promised the board a seamless private equity deal worth $150 million. Everyone was expecting fat bonuses and golden parachutes. But when the acquiring firm's lawyers reviewed the shareholder list, my name kept popping up with an asterisk. They wanted clarification on my shares, and apparently Lionel had assured them I was taken care of. That was when panic started creeping into their voices. One afternoon, I got a call from Lionel himself. His tone was fake friendly. "Clarissa, let's not make this harder than it needs to be. Those shares aren't worth anything. Just sign the waiver and enjoy your severance. It's a win-win." I let a pause stretch across the line before answering calmly, "I'll have my attorney review it." His voice hardened instantly. "You're wasting your time. Deals like this don't wait." "Then maybe they shouldn't have underestimated me," I said, and I hung up. My hands were trembling, but inside I felt stronger than I had in years. From that moment, Lionel's mask slipped. More letters arrived, this time with veiled threats. They hinted at legal action for obstruction and potential liabilities. Amira laughed when she read them. "Empty bluffs," she said. "They're the ones who misrepresented shareholder structure. If anything, they should be scared of you." And they were. Because a week later, the acquiring firm's lawyers demanded an emergency meeting with the board. Apparently, they had discovered the very clause Lionel had tried to bury, and they were furious. My phone rang again, this time from one of the board members I had once admired. He tried to coax me gently. "Clarissa, we all appreciate your years of service. Surely we can find a solution that makes everyone happy." But I had no intention of being coaxed into silence. For 2 decades I had been overlooked, laughed at, and discarded. This was no longer just about money. It was about dignity. It was about proving that the dinosaur with a desk still had teeth sharp enough to draw blood. Amira prepared me meticulously. She said, "You will not go in angry, you will not go in bitter. You will go in calm, precise, and unshakable. That is what terrifies them most, a woman they cannot intimidate. So I waited, patient and silent, as the storm gathered around Lionel and his empire of arrogance. I watched from the shadows as they scrambled to cover their lies. And when the board finally called me into that grand meeting room, I walked in not as the discarded employee they remembered, but as the one person who could stop their entire future with a single word. The boardroom smelled of polished wood and cold sweat the morning I walked in with Amira by my side. Every pair of eyes turned to me as if I were a ghost they thought they had already buried. Lionel sat at the head of the table, jaw tight, his expensive suit doing little to hide the panic in his posture. Across from him were the lawyers from the acquiring firm, their folders thick with documents and their expressions sharp with irritation. I took my seat quietly, placing the old shareholder agreement in front of me. My hands didn't shake this time. For years I had walked into this building with my head bowed, grateful just to be tolerated. But today, I was here as an equal, no, more than an equal. I was the deciding voice in a deal worth $150 million. The chairman cleared his throat, trying to keep order. Clarissa, thank you for joining us. We need to resolve some discrepancies. One of the acquiring firm's lawyers leaned forward. We were assured all legacy shares have been neutralized. But our review shows you still hold veto rights. Is that correct? I slid the document across the table. It's correct. I never signed them away. And unless I approve, this merger does not happen.
Lionel face redonde.
This is absurd. Those shares are a rounding error. They don't matter. Amira's voice was steady, cutting through the tension. They matter because your own agreements say they do. You knew this. You tried to bury it with a waiver. That is a misrepresentation, and my client will not be bullied. For a long moment, silence filled the room. The acquiring firm's lead lawyer turned on Lionel. Did you disclose this risk during negotiations? Lionel stammered, his bravado cracking. It was irrelevant. She wasn't supposed to. Wasn't supposed to what? I interrupted, my voice louder than I intended. Wasn't supposed to notice? Wasn't supposed to fight back? You threw me away like I was worthless, and now you want me invisible while you collect your parachute? No more. The acquiring firm's lawyers exchanged looks, and I knew then that Lionel was finished. They had staked millions on this deal and he had lied to them. The room shifted, power tilting toward me. For once I was the one they needed. Amira leaned in slightly, whispering, "This is the moment. State your terms." I drew a breath and spoke slowly, deliberately. I will not block this merger. But it happens on my terms. First, every legacy shareholder who stayed through the hard years receives a payout worthy of their sacrifice, not pennies. Second, Lionel's golden parachute is cancelled. He doesn't get to profit from lies. Third, a formal board statement will acknowledge my contributions, my years of service, and clear my name from the smear campaign he ran against me. The acquiring firm's lead lawyer nodded without hesitation. Fair. We want this done. Lionel slammed his hand on the table. You can't do this. I built this company. I met his eyes, steady and unflinching.
No, Lionel.
You inherited it. I built it. I was here when the lights almost went out, when payroll almost failed, when customers nearly walked away. You mocked me for holding worthless shares. But today those shares are the only reason this deal is still alive. The chairman rubbed his temples, then turned to the acquiring lawyers. If we agree to her terms, will you proceed? Yes, they said in unison. And just like that, the room fell into reluctant agreement. Papers were drafted, signatures prepared. Lionel's name was stripped from his golden parachute, and mine was etched into the records not as a footnote, but as recognition long overdue. When it was time to sign, the pen felt heavy in my hand. I looked around the room one last time. Some faces showed grudging respect, others pure resentment. Lionel glared at me like a man watching his empire crumble. I almost pitied him, almost. Then I pressed the pen to the page and gave the deal my approval. Walking out of that building, I felt lighter than I had in years. The air seemed fresher, the city streets alive in a way I hadn't noticed before. I hadn't needed to shout, to destroy, or to beg. I had simply used the truth, written long ago, and held it steady until they couldn't ignore me anymore. That was my revenge, not screaming fire, but a quiet, undeniable victory. Later, Amira and I celebrated with glasses of wine. She raised hers and said, "To the power of memory and patience." I smiled, feeling warmth spread through me. To never let them write us out of our own story. And as I lay in bed that night, the echoes of Lionel's laughter still in my mind, I realized it didn't sting anymore. He had laughed at my worthless shares, but in the end those shares had laughed back.
Moral lesson.
Revenge doesn't always roar with fists or flames. Sometimes it waits patiently in documents and quiet truths that others overlook. My story is a reminder that nothing you invest time, loyalty, sacrifice is ever truly worthless. Even when people underestimate you, even when they laugh at what you hold, your worth doesn't vanish because they fail to see it. Power often hides in the fine print of our lives, waiting for the moment we're strong enough to use it. If you're listening to this, take heart. Do not let anyone dismiss your contributions or convince you your story doesn't matter. Keep your records, remember your journey, and trust that dignity, when defended with patience, can shake even the tallest towers of arrogance. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Drop a comment below with what you learned from this story. I love reading your perspectives. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and remember sometimes the quietest revenge is the loudest victory.